Hi everyone, and thank you all for coming. Today we're going to talk about the bright new future of the Jupyter Notebook. So I'm Jeremy, and here we have Eric, Rosio, and another Eric. Right. So let's get started. The Jupyter Notebook, I'm pretty sure if you are here, you all know about the Jupyter Notebook. It's a super successful product. It's used a lot for data exploration, visualization, and also to iterate fast on IDs and data analysis. You can use it to publish your results in multiple formats and share it with other people. And it has millions of users, and there are millions of notebooks on GitHub, for example. And people have used the notebook for like super deep research and discoveries, such as the LIGO experiment and also search for gravitational waves. So it's something that is really key to science and also data science, data exploration, and many other use cases. It's also used a lot in education. So you have a notebook, you can teach your students a lot of different topics. And it's very easy. They can play with the tool, and they can get some outputs, graphs, and images, and so on. So the Notebook 6, which we often refer to as the classic notebook, has been around for many years, but its technical stack is kind of outdated. And it's been the case for maybe 5 years that no real development has happened for Notebook 6. And we also have JupyterLab, but JupyterLab is a separate product, so it can do more things, such as working with terminals, code consoles. You can have your data sets also displayed next to your notebooks. And in the end, there is a situation where there is no real migration path between the notebook that we know and these environments like JupyterLab. But today, we are here to announce a new version for the Jupyter Notebook, which will be Notebook 7. Notebook 7 includes many new features, but one of the most important features of Notebook 7 is that it keeps the same UX and the document-centric look and feel that you have already with the normal Notebook 6. So that's a real feature. And of course, it still keeps the same notebook format and Jupyter protocol, so it's compatible with the notebooks you already have. One particularity is that it's also compatible with the JupyterLab extension ecosystem, and we'll see that a little bit later. So this is what Notebook 7 looks like. It's just like Notebook 6. Yeah. But it also comes with all of this. Which is a nice thing. So if you play with Notebook 7, you will see that there is a table of contents built in. It has also support for MIME extensions, just like in JupyterLab. There's been a lot of work on performance and accessibility. Accessibility is super important, and there is a dedicated working group in Jupyter to work on that. And Jupyter Notebook 7 makes it much nicer when it comes to accessibility. Dark mode also, like people have just been wanting to use dark mode for classic notebook, and it's also built in Notebook 7. And then we have more advanced features such as RTC, real-time collaboration, debugger, support for many JupyterLab extensions, and also a way to transition from Notebook 6 to Notebook 7 in a safe way. So we have highlighted those things in blue at the end, so that's what we're going to demo right now. And we're going to start with RTC. So it's not going to be a live demo, but if you want to try it, you can install this package. So it's a Jupyter collaboration. And on the left side, we see that we are using Notebook. And on the right side, we see it's JupyterLab. And we have two users collaborating on the same notebook, but with different interfaces. You could also be using Notebook for both, or JupyterLab for both, and all of this provides a consistent experience for the users. Yeah. Next, we have some Eric talking about the debugger.
All right. So I'm going to show you the new debugger for Notebook 7. Many of you are probably already familiar with the debugger in PyCharm or other tools. But for those of you who aren't, for those watching online, watching this as a recording, or for other kind of non-coders, the debugger lets you pause execution of your notebooks while they're running so that you can kind of you can walk around and explore the state of variables and look kind of at the internals of your program while it's running. So first, we'll just look at how to debug. So you're going to do that by enabling debugging first by just clicking at that icon in the top bar there. Next, you're going to add some breakpoints by clicking next to the line numbers on the side of the cell there. And then up at the right, you can see the debugger controls. And this is how you're going to walk through and explore your code with these debugger controls. So here's the detail view. You can see this highlighted line here. That's the line that's about to be executed. So that's kind of where you are in the code. Up at the top right, you can see the variable inspector. And by default, this is going to show you local variables for the current stack frame. So you can change that, but that's what it does by default. Below that, you can see in this call stack section the debugger controls and a list of the current stack frames. So that's just a list of all the functions that have been called up to the current point. And below that, in this breakpoint section, that just lists all the breakpoints you have enabled. And that's just basically where in the code the debugger is going to stop when it hits. And there's a few other controls, but they're kind of less critical, so I'll leave you to explore those. And then last, we'll just take a look at the controls in a little bit more detail. So we have this continue, terminate, step over, step into, step out, and evaluate. So if you know that you only want to stop at a few different places in the code, you can just set some breakpoints and then just repeatedly click that play button there. And that'll just stop every time the debugger hits one of those breakpoints. But if you're not really sure, or you want to kind of explore more freely, or you want to just see your logic run step by step by step, you can use some of the other controls there. So step over will run until the debugger hits the line below the current line. Step in will run the next line, but it will also trace into any function calls. And then step out is useful for when you're really, really deep in a call stack and you find yourself in some function that you aren't really interested in. You can hit step out, and that will, the debugger will keep running until the current function returns and will drop you at the next line of code that's about to be executed. Then we have a demo. Here's my backup GIF in case it doesn't work, but we'll try it live. So this is a really simple, kind of contrived notebook. All it does is just takes that string at the top. It's going to chop it into a list of words. It's going to strip out non-letter characters, and then it's going to title case each word. So very simple, very basic, but hopefully illustrates these features pretty clearly. So again, we'll go View, Debugger Panel, and that'll bring up the panel at the right. We are going to enable debugging. We're going to set a breakpoint down here, which is where we're printing out the result of that function call. And then we're going to run this cell. All right, so now we're debugging. You can see some stuff showing up at the right panel there. But I'm going to hit step in. So let's see. Oh, I have to run the other cells. That's right. I'll stop real quick. Rerun this stuff. There we go. So we're going to step in to that function call. So both of these functions use little accumulators. So it will look at each letter, and it will strip out non-letter characters. It will accumulate that onto a result string. And if you look at the top right there, if I click through this by just saying next, 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 you'll see this chunk variable, this local variable there. You'll see it kind of change as I walk through the logic here. So if I keep stepping through, now we're at the chunk want with an exclamation point. You'll see if I keep going. The clean version of that has no exclamation point. And then I'm just going to keep walking through this. And if I keep going to this word, we'll use our step in control. So we're looking even deeper in the call stack here. So you can see all of those different functions listed over in the call stack. And then if I just run this, you'll see that this word is being built up at the top right. So we're iterating over the letters in this string and then title casing. And then let's say I don't care about this anymore. I can just step out to return to where I was. And then I'll just resume to show you that's what the clean string looks like. But that's kind of a basic demo of how the Notebook 7 debugger works. So again, this is similar to debuggers you've been using for a long time, but the nice thing is this one kind of knows the notebook format, it knows what cell you're in, and it gives you that same kind of experience just in the same notebook editing environment that you're used to.
So we're talking about Notebook 7 powered by JupyterLab as well. So most JupyterLab extensions should work on Notebook 7. You'll find that there will be some incompatibilities, some known, like JupyterLab Git, but you're welcome to open up issues and reach out to developers for particular extensions you find maybe have some incompatibilities. You can find those extensions with the extension manager that you are familiar with from JupyterLab, and that is under the view and the option to click on the extension manager. You can also browse PyPy and GitHub for extensions. And you can view your Manix extensions with the Jupyter commands that you're familiar with for JupyterLab, JupyterLab extension list. You can also view the extension status to see whether maybe the extension is compatible with your Notebook 7. Because development is streamlined between JupyterLab and Notebook 7 extensions, you can use the extension template that is available. It's being worked on currently for the upcoming JupyterLab release, and so it should work on Notebook 7 soon. And yeah, another feature that I can briefly mention is with the updates to the core, there's been a lot of improvements in accessibility, so you too can develop like extensions with accessibility in mind. We're going to do a quick just show of using some extensions, JupyterLab Darkside UI, and then also JupyterLab Execute Time. And this is my image in case something goes wrong. But let's see. Oops. I'm going to enable the JupyterLab execute time, I believe. Okay, and then in here, you may just want to like refresh this here, if I can. Okay, so first we'll show in Notebook here, we can see the extension manager. We can say yes, and we can view the extensions that we have installed. And we'll just, if it doesn't work on the terminal, you can always enable it with the extension manager. So here I have the two extensions, Darkside UI and JupyterLab Execute Time. So we'll go to Theme and Settings, and then we will enable Darkside UI, and this is it in Notebook 7, as you would see it in Lab. If I refresh, there it is. And then I'll just turn everything back to original settings. And then Execute Time, might have to relaunch. Let me see. Oh, no. Open this up here. And then if I, okay, so there you go. The didn't pray to the demo live demo gods. So last execute time and the time that it took to execute there, like the Notebook 6 extension that you may be familiar with. Yes, let's see, go back to the, okay. Yeah, so if you are checking out some extensions and you find you see some areas you can participate in, contribute to enabling or well, making that extension work with Notebook 7. If you find some incompatibilities, you can always join a developer call, open an issue, or chat a question on Discourse. There's a lot of great people that are willing to help us with that. So yeah, I think that's it.
Cool. Now the art part is done. The screen is up, and we can retrospect a bit on what we have just heard. So many new features, so many incredible RTC debugger functionality you can use with Notebook 7. But yes, there is a but. There is always like a trade-off. Is that if you are using Notebook 6, you may have some custom Notebook 6 extensions. And those ones, like the exact time, is not going to work in Notebook 7. I mean, the package you were used to pip install will not be effective in Notebook 7. And if you have other extensions custom developed by you or by your team, those extensions, very custom for Notebook 7, are not going to be supported by Notebook 7. So it's just a but. But there is another but. We do have options. We do have solutions for you. So that's a good news. So option one, you may find some equivalent extensions to the one you are already using for Notebook 6. And the one we mentioned, the exact time, is a good one. There were such similar feature for 6 and 7, meaning that you can simply go through the table, which is documented on the website, and find, hopefully, an extension that fulfill the functionality you add on Notebook 6. So just look around, you have the link, or you just land on the main latest Jupyter Notebook with the docs, and you can see the list, which is evolving, of course. So option one, just look for an equivalent. Option two, well, the hardest one. The hard way is just, okay, it's so custom that you need to redevelop from scratch. So meaning that potentially part of the server, if you do have server extensions, can be reused. Let's say you have a specific service and you can reuse that, but the front end typically needs to be redeveloped because, as we said, Notebook 7 is built on JupyterLab stack, which has its own extension system, which has its own API, completely different from Notebook 6. To do that, we can help you. You can first have the tutorials, the explanation. You can join the calls. We are here to help you, but at some point you may need to redevelop those extensions if the equivalent is not found. And the option three, finally, let's say you don't have the equivalent, you don't want to redevelop, just use NbClassic. So what is NbClassic? NbClassic is the implementation of the Notebook 6 running on a Jupyter server. So there is like the notion now of separated Jupyter server, which can be used to deliver different UI. And what we have done, we have taken the UI you all know of Notebook 6 with jQuery stuff and extension system NB extension system, the old one, and we have moved that as a Jupyter Server extension, meaning that we give you a safety blanket, a safety net, which is fully backwards compatible with Notebook 6. So NbClassic is like maintain Notebook 6 for some time, fully backwards compatible. And I'm going to demo that for you. If you pip install Notebook, JupyterLab and NbClassic -3, and this is what I have done in my environment, and maybe I'm going to show you what those server extensions are. So if you do Jupyter Server extension list, you're going to see a bunch of entries. And JupyterLab actually is installed and is a server extension. Notebook 7 also is a server extension, and you have NbClassic. And I'm going to kick that. And I'm going to go to that port, well-known port 888. And by default, it's going to drive you to the Notebook 7 UI. You see it is /3 in the link over there. And this is Notebook 7. I'm going to do that. Notebook 7 beta 2. And it works fine. I mean, I can do like 1 + 2. Fine. And I'm going to save that. No, I'm going to simply change the link, or if you don't want to change the link, you can go to the menu. And you can see the same notebook in lab. Or you can just do so 1 + 2, 1 + 3, save, OK. Or you can go to lab. This is another way to do that. Lab, because what I showed you was a simple mode of JupyterLab. Right? So in JupyterLab, you have a simple mode, simple view mode, view appearance, simple interface. This is what you showed, and it's on /doc. And you have also view appearance, /lab. And now the NbClassic. You do /NbClassic, and I guess you recognize the UI. Well, maybe you need to be a bit expert. And we have that 1 + 4, now 1 + 5. And you see there is the exact time. And if you go back here, you have some of you may know the configurator, which is an extension to manage other extensions. And I have just installed the well-known NB extension configurator, which allows you to activate the autosave or the exec time, or any other extensions you know maybe before. And it's up and running on, you see autosave here, autosave interval, exec time. So this is our answer to people who have very custom extension, who don't want to migrate for now, and who still needs to follow up with the new stack of the servers, the new maintenance, and so on. So time to wrap up. Because when you go out with so many details, we would like you to know what to do. You just use Notebook 6, vanilla, no customization. Fine, upgrade, please, to get the new feature. If you have extension, check if it's available. If not, just use NbClassic or redevelop, and take some time maybe to ask for help if you need. The help can be found, of course, on the repositories, on the issues, PR you can open. We try to answer as well as we can. If you are not familiar with GitHub or prefer something like more a forum, we do have Discourse. And of course, if you want to join to go into more details, we have weekly meetings, call on Zoom. And yeah. So we all thank you and open for questions.
Yeah, so the question was, so you have a Notebook 6 extension, right? And the question was whether it was possible to have a way to have users install the extension and have it run on JupyterLab, NbClassic, and Notebook 7. Right, with only one. So because of the fact that the the Notebook 7 extension system is based on the JupyterLab extension system. It's just the same. There is no compatibility between the classic Notebook 6 extension system, which was using require.js, jQuery, and all of this, which the lab is different. So there is no way. There might be some utility functions you could isolate in different files, for example, in JavaScript or something like this. But you won't be able to get the same extension system work in the old one and the new one. So, yeah. Again, like if it's an extension that is already maybe available in JupyterLab, then maybe you don't need to keep the or to port it yourself, right? So
maybe I'd like to add that that exact question or requirement has been discussed, but the technical burden to do that was so high that we were not able to implement it. Yeah.
Yeah, and also to give more context, the JupyterLab extension system is this way because it was meant also to fix a lot of issues in the classic notebook extension system, which is also why there was this transition before even Notebook 7. Yes, so there are other kernels that support debugging. There is one that there are two Python kernels. So one IPy is the one that you're probably most familiar with, but there is also XUS Python kernel, and both implemented the debugger. So you can use one or the other. And then there are also other kernels such as the XUS robot. Is for
Sorry, I mean for other languages.
Yes, but the robot language is a different language.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you check this kernel, you will see that the syntax is different. It's for like making automation or things like this, and the debugger is implemented there. So the debugger follows the debugger adapter protocol, which is also it's the same protocol used in VS Code and also other editors. So a kernel needs to implement that protocol to be able to be compatible with the JupyterLab and Notebook 7 debugger, but there is no change required in the interfaces. So the debugger will work the same whether it's a Python kernel or a robot kernel. Yeah.
And what do you mean with notebook server? Is it yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to repeat the question, but also answering it. So we do have, the question was about will the notebook server be supported or maintained and so on. So we didn't want to bother you with more details about the version line, but you have 6.4, notebook 6.4, which is the old Tornado handler, which is what we call notebook server, which is not the Jupyter server, right? So 6.4 aims to not be maintained, so please upgrade. We just take exceptional security fix and so on, but it's not maintained. So please upgrade to 6.5. 6.5 still runs on the Tornado handler, so the old stack, Python stack, but uses the UI of NbClassic, right? The jQuery UI is developed in NbClassic, and we use that UI, we import it. So that is kind of maintained, because the UI anyway is maintained, and because we take also security and patch fixes for the notebook server, which is the old Tornado handler. So I hope it's answered your question. And the Jupyter server, the NbClassic, is long-term maintenance. NbClassics, we need to decide how we're going to maintain that. Yeah? Thank you.